Over time, nicotine has evolved and been presented to people in different forms, creating populations of addicted groups constantly needing a fix of the incredibly harmful addictive chemical. In the past years, nicotine's most common form of use in cigarettes has been surpassed by a trendier, ergo dangerous manifestation through vaping. The more modern method of consumption preys on the youth of the world, introducing a new gateway into addiction that is still horribly detrimental to the human body, particularly the teenage body. In San Francisco, California, the issue of teen vaping has become prominent through Proposition C, a proposal made by Big Tobacco in order to manipulate the regulation of the sales of e-cigarettes. Prop C has been met with opposition, specifically from SF Kids vs. Big Tobacco, an organization fighting against a scheme made by Big Tobacco to lure teenagers into nicotine-addicted lives. SF Kids vs. Big Tobacco's determined attempt at reversing Big Tobacco's negative impact on the health of teens is the solution to protecting the well-being of the future of San Francisco. The harmful effects of vaping have long created health problems for the people in San Francisco, especially heavily stunting the crucial growth of the kids and teens of San Francisco, and therefore, SF Kids vs. Big Tobacco have every right to fight against the passing of Proposition C.
Guys, what are we doing?
Voting no on Prop C!
Woo!
On the other hand, the organization advocating for Proposition C, called the Coalition for Reasonable Vaping Regulation, claims that e-cigarettes can aid smokers with lung cancer in their transition from cigarettes to e-cigarettes, a benefit that will cease to exist with the rejection of Prop C. E-cigarettes have been seen as potentially beneficial for smokers, in this case specifically smokers who are also lung cancer patients. A study done by Bertrand Dotzenberg and Daniel Gerlich supports their claim by stating that smoking actually worsens the outcome of their surgeries. Looking past adolescence and into adulthood, the utilization of e-cigarettes can be seen as beneficial and used as a direct alternative for cigarettes. Voting no on Proposition C would ultimately take away another option for smoking cessation for these patients with lung cancer in the city of San Francisco. Because all e-cigarettes are non-FDA approved as of 2019,
you thought, well, we've got to regulate this more. We've got to get our arms around this, right?
Right. If we see another sharp increase in the youth rates this year, we're going to have to look at more draconian measures like potentially taking these pod-based products off the market entirely.
it is uncertain when these city patients will be able to have access to e-cigarettes, and until then, they may resort back to smoking cigarettes. Although seen as a way to ease cigarette addictions, e-cigarettes are not the be-all, end-all solution. Proposition C will do nothing to help San Francisco smokers stray from their cigarette addiction, contradicting the coalition's claim and furthermore justifies voting no on Prop C. Many e-cigarette companies like Juul often advertise e-cigarettes as a way to avoid smoking cigarettes, which can be seen in this clip.
Today what happens is the FDA came down hard on Juul. They said, you are doing unsafe practices. You are basically telling people that this e-cigarette is safe when in fact nothing has been proven along that route. And part of the FDA's rules are that you can't say it's safe unless it's scientifically been proven it's safe.
However, users who have used e-cigarettes are 28% less likely to quit smoking compared to smokers who have never used an e-cigarette. E-cigarettes leading to dual use, which is using cigarettes and e-cigarettes, completely negates its intended purpose of providing a smoking cessation. With e-cigarettes not living up to its advertised benefits, its disadvantages quickly catch up and render them as troubling as cigarettes. This means that voting no on Proposition C will only prevent the youth from accessing e-cigarettes and its adverse health effects because it does not help smokers quit in the end. Yet, the coalition also argues that e-cigarettes are healthier than cigarettes. Relative to cigarettes, e-cigarettes seem like a godsend for smokers as it brings the same desired effects without the numerous drawbacks from combustible cigarettes. E-cigarettes merely heat up a liquid and does not combust. The lack of combustion avoids all the harms that comes with it. What voting yes for Proposition C fundamentally does is provide a less dangerous alternative to cigarettes, which have already been proven to have a bad health background that includes numerous carcinogens and respiratory problems. This diagram describes the numerous chemical compounds present in cigarettes and shows what compounds are in various objects we would not ingest or inhale otherwise. However, e-cigarettes are still not healthy to use, no matter the circumstance, and Prop C will do nothing but bring harm to San Francisco. Even when seen as a healthier alternative to cigarettes, e-cigarettes are still not good for inhalation. Many carcinogens are present in e-cigarettes like formaldehyde and acetaldehyde. No matter the extent that e-cigarettes are better than cigarettes, they will still be harmful to a human being's body and people will be better off without it. Focusing on the youth, banning e-cigarettes through voting no on Proposition C will decrease the use of both e-cigarettes and traditional cigarettes in teenagers, both of which possess detrimental health effects. Shutting out access to these products will prevent any unnecessary harm to SF teens. This will also affect adults, but the benefits e-cigarettes bring to smokers are already proven to be little to none. Minors who use e-cigarettes have a tremendously increased chance of switching to and smoking cigarettes when compared to minors who have not picked up the vice of vaping. Therefore, Prop C will only further the terrible usage of e-cigarettes. When comparing the adverse health effects with cigarettes, e-cigarettes may seem better, but this same healthy alternative can lead kids to smoking the real thing. Research done by Jessica L. Barrington-Trimmis regarding the probability of cigarette smoking in minors concluded that adolescents who reported e-cigarette use had more than 6 times the odds of initiating e-cigarette use as never e-cigarette users. E-cigarette use may increase the risk of smoking during the transition to adulthood. If Proposition C is passed, San Francisco residents are encouraging teenagers to follow this possibly life-changing pathway. E-cigarettes are simply a gateway towards cigarettes, and the effects cigarette smoking has on one's body are tremendously worse than the effects that e-cigarettes have. The harmful physical effects of vaping are why e-cigarettes should be unavailable to all San Francisco residents, especially the youth. Nicotine, already a leading factor in the dangers of e-cigarettes, is just one of other harmful ingredients that can be found in e-cigarettes. Respiratory problems and even an increased chance for a heart attack begin to develop with consistent e-cigarette use, which are problems that should not exist and should not develop at such an early age. San Francisco should prioritize protecting the adolescent population by voting no on Proposition C rather than providing smokers with one out of numerous nicotine delivery alternatives. The damaging effects of e-cigarettes shouldn't be dismissed, especially when it comes to the biggest users of e-cigarettes being teens, who also pose the biggest group to be physically hurt by the growing usage of e-cigarettes. With smoking's decrease in popularity comes the influx of e-cigarettes into the nicotine market and its popularization in San Francisco high schools from the negative perspectives of smoking. Research done has made it clear that smoking leads to sickness and disease. However, even without the medical research, the conviction needed to decrease smoking also comes in smoking shift to a negatively connotated activities marginalizing people who smoke. In turn, the harmless perception e-cigarettes convey in teen audiences are normalized. In San Francisco, if Proposition C is passed, not only will it hurt the fabric of the city's welfare with its decreased regulation on e-cigarettes, it creates a precedent in San Francisco that teaches the malleable minds of teens and youth that e-cigarettes are okay. Almost 20% of trash collected from a San Francisco school consisted of e-cigarette products. Even when compared to its traditional counterpart, the dangers e-cigarettes bring are unrecognized or ignored by teenagers. The belief that using e-cigarettes is normal and liked, even with unknown risk factors, will only be heightened with the passing of Proposition C. On top of the physical effects, the mental effects that vaping brings to the youth of San Francisco are extremely harmful. With the youth having access to and using e-cigarettes, their minds that are still in development are being altered in unnatural ways that hinder the natural process that comes with growth. Especially because the brain does not stop growing until the age of 25. It is extremely important to protect the youth from such potentially life-altering nicotine addictions. By ruining the foundation of life through damaging one's brain, it only leads to further difficulties in the future. Even with the stress of school, e-cigarettes can create even more friction in their lives as addiction begins to form. So, high schoolers who use e-cigarettes could be risking their grades and potentially their future careers because they can't pay attention in school. What this brings in the future is a new generation of San Francisco adults that possess these drug-seeking behaviors and ultimately prevent the well-being of the population of San Francisco. Despite the argument that e-cigarettes are a healthier alternative to traditional cigarettes, if Proposition C is passed, it will only be easier for brainwashed teens fed with the misinformation of e-cigarettes to follow the pathway to nicotine, allowing the adverse health effects on their still developing bodies. Even with the factual evidence that there are numerous ways that e-cigarettes harm human bodies, there is still much that is unknown about the vapor being inhaled and ingested by teenagers. SF Kids vs. Big Tobacco's campaign against the passing of Proposition C is meaningful because of its effort in obstructing teens from stepping foot in e-cigarettes' unfamiliar territory. Not only does voting no on Proposition C mean there is a stop to detrimental effects on health for teenagers, but it also means, by and large, the insurance of a prospective healthy generation. Voting no is a step in protecting kids, teenagers, and the future of San Francisco.